Alright, hey everyone, this video is going to be explaining what the code does and just the general ideas of what I did here and a few explanations. You can find more in-depth explanations of how JavaScript works and the functionality of it either by Google searching or in the playlist that I included. Anyway, I'll explain this code for the app.js file, and here we go. Alright, so you're going to notice first of all up here I made a few const stands for constant in JavaScript, and basically what I'm doing is I'm taking, remember those directories those dependencies we downloaded in the last video? Well, basically what I'm doing is I'm saying, okay, I'm grabbing these dependencies after I download them, and I'm storing in these little variables that I can reference later. So I do that for Express, and I make a constant called app that basically it's going to use Express. So this is going to allow us to do get, post, and put and delete requests. I make one called Papa. It gets Papa parse. Papa parse is used to basically, modify the, no, it's used to read the CSV file. So used to read the CSV file. Here, FS stands for file system, so I'm using this to basically read a file from my system. And here I'm making a variable called file, and I'm using fs.readFileSync, and I'm giving it the name of my test file, and then this stands for the standard character set. So I use that here. If you want to switch to the actual file, you can just uncomment this line and comment this one out and do that. This is a basic explanation how to get your stuff started, and I kind of went over that in the last video. Alright. So the first command we're looking at is the app.useExpress.json. Basically, we're using this app we know runs on Express, and we're saying basically we want to get all our responses back in JSON. So that's what this does. Yeah, so basically it only parses JSON as a little description. Okay. Now we're going to need to open a server that allows us to connect to our Postman, and oh no, haven't been recorded? Am I recording? Yes. Yes, I have been recording. Okay, that's good. I'm going to keep that in the corner. Hope you guys don't mind. Alright, so what this does, it basically says I'm going to go to my environment and I'm going to assign a port 3000 an environmental variable. That way I can know I get it, or at least the closest available one. And here I'm making a, this is basically going to let us hold a bunch of Java objects that we're going to get from our CSV file. So you can basically think of each one of these rows as its own Java object, and we're going to be storing them here. Now, I'm going to use Papa parses, which remember is from here. I'm going to use its parse function, and since our CSV file has a header at this first line, which tells us what each of the categories mean, I set that header category to true. This just means there's anything empty, I'm going to skip the empty line, so I said true for that. And then this complete function, in JavaScript you can use complete, and basically it says once I'm done parsing the function, the file, I'm then going to do this function, which is going to basically take, remember that CSV rows, we're going to use that to hold each of the rows, right? I'm going to take the data for CSV rows, and I'm going to assign it to whatever I got from Papa parse. So Papa parse is going to take each row, and it's going to pop them, the data section from that row here. We have these errors in meta. We don't really use them. They're just used to catch any errors that we generate when we're doing Papa parse. So this does all the hard work for us. Alright. Let's check our time. We're still good. Alright. Next up, you're going to do, what this thing does is it creates an array from our CSV rows object. Remember, this contains all the data for our file right now. So what it does, it takes the data aspect of it, which has all of our rows and all that stuff, and this map function basically allows us to turn this stuff into an array that we can store here. So .map is used to convert data to an array. And what I'm doing here is I'm using something called an arrow function. Now, alternatively, I could have wrote that as function row and then brackets, and I could have pasted this code in here, and that would have meant the same thing. So that's all an arrow function is. It's basically shorthand for writing out a function inside your code. And I just found that out from watching a bunch of videos. Let's check that up. Okay. So what this does, it basically says, I want you to make a Java object. I want you to set it equal to whatever you were able to get from a single row of this Java array. And I want you to put it inside this Java object. And then once you're done with that, I want you to then for the CSV array, I want each individual element inside this array to basically contain a JSON object. Alright, so once that's done, you can then test that they printed correctly. I left this code in there if you want to just test it out, and I'll print it in the terminal, but I'm not going to show that today. Now, find the element by array number. Basically, if you pass in the array, which was CSV array, the type category, basically, yeah, I'll show you how to use that later. We'll come back to this. But basically, this is used for search numbers. This is used to locate strings within our CSV array. Okay, so let's do our very basic get. This is a collection response because you see it's got plural movies. This S means it's collection. So what I did is I say this stands for request and this stands for response. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say once I get a response from this, so for my response to Postman, I'm going to send the entire array, which is why when we use we'll get the entire array when we do /movies. I'm just saying take the entire array and print it. So that's all this does. And you'll see right here, I probably should move this up here, but whatever. App.listen, basically it does, it sets up a live server to basically listen on port 3000, and then all this does is basically prints it prints this message right here. So this basically sets us a server that allows us to connect to Postman. Alright, so next up we have another collection response, and what this one does, it's an off branch of movies, but I'm getting a collection response of years, and this is where I can enter a specific year I want to enter. So if I want to do like something like 1928, I can do that. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a movie year, and I'm creating a variable. Notice it's not constant, and I'm setting it equal to find element array number, since year is going to be a number. So I pass in the array, I pass in the category name year, because you'll notice that it's called year in here, which means each of our JSON objects has an attribute called year. And then I'm also passing in whatever year the user entered. So remember, this is what the user sends us. So the request, and then the parameters, and the one we gave us is 1928. So request, go to the parameters given, this would be 1928. We'd go back to our find element array. Remember, this is our array number. Sorry, this is our array. This is our category, so in this case a year and a string. And this is the year we're given, so 1928. This is an array. This is a counter. And we go through, and for each, we go through basically the entire array, and we say for each place where array year, remember this is a part of the JSON object. Let me check how much time I've got. I can do this. Okay. So your JSON object basically kind of looks like this right now. So you've got this, and we have year, and I'll say like 1928, comma, was it entity, and then like actor. All our JSON objects kind of have this like look to them. I'm not going to type out the full thing because too much effort. I'm sorry, brothers and sisters and whatevers. I don't know why I said that. Just ignore that last comment. I don't know. I'm very tired. So basically, the point is, you're basically searching through the entire array. You're going to each category year, and you're saying, does that equal the year we got? If it does, then you're going to basically make your brand new list. You're going to increase the size of it, and you're going to basically assign it whatever was here, and you assign it the entire row. Remember, you're copying the entire JSON objects, not just the year part. So that's going to give us everything. And this literally does the same thing, but spoiler alert, with strings. So I used to use this function called local compare, and it basically compares it to the string given. So these are literally the same, just, strings versus numbers. So that's what that does. So after I get that, I get my array of essentially a valid movie objects. I have that year. And then I just this is just for testing. So I said, this is what I found, just to prove that I tested this right. Honestly, we could delete this before we submit it. And I basically say, if it's not found, then I'm going to basically send the user a 404 error.